everyone, Sister Michelle here from sisterdiy.com. Today we are making a delicious onion and herb quiche. This recipe is easy and makes a great side dish to any meal. Let's get started. The first thing that we're going to do is make our crust. So for this crust you will need 2 1/3 cup flour, 2 sticks of butter chilled and cubed, 1/3 cup of water really cold, and also a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to start by adding my flour and salt to my food processor. And now I'm just going to pulse it to combine. All right. Next, I'm going to add my cubed butter. Oh gosh, spatula. And I'm going to pulse it just until it's crumbly. And the last thing I'm going to add is my cold water, and I'm just going to drizzle it in until it comes together. I have a 1/3 cup, but I also added a little bit more just in case. You may need more or less. All right. So you know your crust is done when your dough forms a ball in your food processor. So what I'm going to do now is divide it in half. I'm going to chill one for later because this dough actually makes 2 crusts, but we're only making 1 quiche today. Okay, so I have my prepared pie dish, and now I'm just going to roll my dough out. Now I'm just going to transfer it over to my pie plate. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Next, I'm just going to dock the dough with a fork just to make sure it doesn't puff up when it's baking. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is blind bake our crust. And that is just to ensure that our crust stays crispy and flaky throughout the baking time. So to do that, you're going to need a piece of parchment paper and also a bag of dried beans or some pie weights. So the parchment paper is so that we don't put the beans directly onto the crust. We don't want the beans to bake onto the crust. So what you're gonna do is you could just put it over and kind of just fit it in, but it's not gonna fit in very well that way. So what you wanna do is ball up your parchment paper pretty tight. And this is gonna help it fit into your crust perfectly. Just like that. Now I'm gonna pour this entire bag of beans in my pie crust. Now I have been using the same bag of beans for years. You can reuse and reuse. Now I will never use these for eating, but they are permanent pie weights. So I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. I'm gonna bake this for about 12 minutes. Then I'm going to remove the pie weights and bake it again for another 10 minutes to set the crust. All right, so our crust bakes for 12 minutes, and that was just to set the shape of the crust. Now I'm gonna bake it again for another 10 minutes. All right, so our crust is done, and you can see that the edges are just now starting to brown. Now I'm gonna let it cool while I work on the quiche filling. For the filling, you're gonna need 3 eggs, 1 cup of milk, a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. This is an onion and herb quiche, so you're gonna need some herbs, and I have some green onions. For my herbs, you can use whatever herbs you prefer, but today I'm gonna use some thyme, oregano, and basil. I've also used sage, rosemary. It's all up to what you like. I also have a cup of cheese, and you can use whatever kind of cheese you like. I have used all kinds of cheese in my quiche. Today I'm using a white cheddar, and then of course salt and pepper. All right, so first I'm gonna add my eggs. I have 3 eggs. Also my 1/2 cup of heavy cream. Next, I'm gonna add 1 cup of milk. And I'm gonna give it a good whisk. All right, now that that's whisked pretty well, I'm going to add my herbs. I have, of course, again, my thyme. I have oregano and basil. You can use whatever herbs that you like. Next, I'm going to add my salt and pepper. Give it a whisk. Okay, so now I'm going to get my pie crust. It's still a bit warm, but it's cooled enough. And I'm gonna take half of my cheese and put it on the bottom. Now I'm gonna take all of my filling and pour it in. Now I'm going to take the rest of my cheese and sprinkle that on top. And lastly, I'm going to take my green onions and evenly sprinkle them. Alright, now I'm going to bake this for about 30 to 35 minutes until it's set. Alright, so as you can see, the crust is perfectly brown, and if you want to test it to make sure it's completely done, you can just give it a little shake, and as long as it doesn't jiggle like it's still watery, then it's done. You want to see that kind of slight jiggle. So it's done, and I'm going to let it cool for a good 10 to 15 minutes before I cut it. And there you have it, delicious onion and herb quiche with a perfectly flaky crust. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this recipe. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.